Hey y'all, how's it going? Today we have a very special episode. Today we're talking about the Sandman season 1. And as you can see, I have a special guest here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Hi, Mia. My name is Dan Selcke. I'm the editor over at winteriscoming.net, where I used to work with Mia Johnson on the daily, day in, day out, 24/7, talk about all things fantasy life movies, TV. You are Take the Black host every week. We miss you over there. I do
Oh,
miss you because you were so much fun. You were really, really good. But I'm really happy to be on your channel talking about a show that I found quite delightful.
that's awesome. Yeah, I was telling you, I want to talk about the Sandman, and we kind of chatted about it on Twitter already. So you know that I am really ecstatic
Which
about
I'm really
this.
glad
But
to hear.
yeah, it's so funny because I remember when we were covering this on the podcast
Right.
podcast still goes on,
Oh,
but
yeah, it does.
now
Yeah.
that I'm no longer there,
Every
we were
Wednesday.
like, every Wednesday we were having these conversations, and I was like, you were kind of like gauging, like, oh, are you excited about this? Are you?
Yeah, I do
And I was
remember
like, probably not. I
that.
take it all back. So, okay, so you obviously, okay, what are your first impressions overall, though, about the Sandman? Let's just hear it.
Okay. Honestly, if tell you the truth, the first two episodes, I did not like the show because I'm someone who read the comics back when, and I'm rereading them now because I'm just getting back into it because why not? Um, and so I knew basically what it was. And the reason I kept gauging you and others in general was because I knew how kind of odd it was. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, like, are people going to vibe with this? It's just because I like it, but I don't really have perspective here. Like, cause
Okay.
I'm a fan, so I just don't know what it'd be like. And it's such a weird thing to turn into a show, right? Because I mean, it's weird in comic form. The main character is Dream, who is the personification of dreams, but he's also just like a guy with a personality and just kind of like walks around. He's eternal. He's been lived for millions of years and goes to other worlds. But it's also like a family drama. It's just and everything is so kind of there's some real esoteric stuff in there, like a
Yeah.
animated Thousand Cats thing, which is the weirdest they've gotten so far.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. And for the first two episodes, I didn't like it. That first one especially, because they were doing so much. I didn't like that Dream was narrating things because in
Okay.
the whole point of that to me is you don't know who he is. Like he
Right.
narrates nothing in the comic. He's just they've got this weird naked pale guy in a bubble, and like that's the point. That's the mystery. It's like
Right.
be with them while they are mystified by this. But he was like he wouldn't shut up. And I didn't like the prologue. I thought they were doing too much to try and introduce viewers to this. I'm happy to be wrong because clearly people liked it anyway. But oh, perhaps you didn't like it either. I don't know. But
The
by the second
first
episode, I just I'll stop on it in just a second. I promise. I swear to God.
no, go, go, go.
Um, it turned for me when the three fates came the second episode, and I thought that was done really well, and I was kind of
Mhm.
intimidated and scared by them. And then from there on out, I turned pretty hard, and I've never had a show where I've gone so far from I do not like this to I love this and want more immediately.
Wow.
It's never happened before like this.
Wow. Well, I'm glad to hear your story. Yeah, I guess it's kind of interesting for me. I actually was hooked in the first episode. But I guess I'll talk about this now. I was expecting, I guess, for the overall structure of the season to be a little
Mhm.
different. So I was like, for the longest, I thought like this episode in particular was just going to be the first one was going to be him
Right.
locked in the cage. And I was like, is the whole season going to be about him trying to like get revenge on the
Just
guy
the
who
old
had locked
guys.
him up?
Yeah.
Yeah, the old guys. And
Tywin Lannister. Yeah.
yes, okay. I don't know why I did look that up. I was like, that's definitely him, but I couldn't tell for sure.
Oh,
Um,
it's him. Yeah.
yeah, so but the episode did draw me in, and it began to have a little bit of Doctor Who flavor. I don't know why.
Definitely.
Maybe it's just because it's British people and they're talking with
Oh,
British accents, and it's just very, very
I
British.
mean, Neil Gaiman's a British writer. It's
Yeah,
British sci-fi fantasy. It's a guy who just goes. I mean, he doesn't travel through time, but he's been in tons of different time areas. So he just
right.
like any there will be stories where just like, we're going to be in 1400 for this story. Like, it just happens. It's very Doctor Who. It's extremely Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a wrong comparison at all.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that kind of subverted my expectations was the fact that with Doctor Who, the Doctor is front and center for pretty much every adventure. They're the personality, they're the life of the party. And then every so often you will have like a one-off adventure with a companion. And it's some like really strong writing because all of a sudden you have to kind of figure out what do you do when the Doctor isn't around. So for this one, I was kind of, I don't know. It was weird to me because, as someone was kind of saying, you know, Dream isn't always the main character, right?
True.
You talk about,
yeah,
you talk about the relationship between like him serving the humans or humans serving him, and it's like, no, these are just stories constructed around humans or sometimes cats, and then seeing, you know, how Dream eventually plays into that. I don't know. It's kind of strange, but that I picked up on that eventually.
I mean, he is the main character, but yes, it's the show. Well, I guess the show is called The Sandman, just like Doctor Who, but no, it is more Dream and Friends. And, you know, I mean, it's not exactly like Doctor Who. Like Doctor Who has to kind of refresh itself.
I don't know. There's David Tennant, there's Arthur Darvill, there's
no, not Matt Smith.
Who was Clara?
I mean,
whoever,
Clara. Hell, come on. Clara, who's Joanna Constantine.
Open.
I'm gonna get
Jenna Coleman.
Okay, I wasn't gonna get it.
This is why I always have IMDb open, because it's.
But yeah, he's the main character, but he is not the only character. And there are people who are like on his level, whereas the Doctor is always kind of very singular. Like at the end of the day, the Doctor's always going to save the day and be the one who does it. This is a bit more of an ensemble show. And it's a bit more of, it is similar to Doctor Who because like you said, you wondered if the whole boy in a bubble thing was going to be the entire show. Like, not only is it not the entire show, it moves on from that pretty much immediately and will never stop moving on for the rest of the comic. The show has variety out the wazoo. Your YouTube channel, I don't know if I can say that one. I don't know if you want to bleep it out in editing. That'd be time wasting. Which is one of the big appeals. And another reason I was wondering whether it would catch on, because it shifts tones freely, often, and unceasingly. And there are like some that are like have more of an arc, like those final 4 episodes were kind of like all this one arc, and there'll be more stuff like that. But there's also just a lot of just kind of hit and run, just like standalone stuff. And I like the approach they use to combining some things, like the episode where he hangs out with Death, and then the one which is also the one where he goes and we see him with his friend Hobgoblin over the centuries. Those are 2 completely different issues, like spread out, and they just kind of like graph them together, and they worked really well together. I thought. I don't know if Calliope and the cat Dream work well together, but I mean, you're gonna have to put them somewhere. And I love, again, as a fan of the comic, they're doing everything. Like, they're not leaving any stone unturned. I never thought they would do Dream of a Thousand Cats, because I read that one. I like that one a lot. But it's like, this is a completely standalone. You couldn't do this in live action. The characters are all cats. It'd be impossible. I saw Milo and Otis. That was one cat. It was impossible. You couldn't do like 1,000. But they did it because they animated it, which was very smart. Because they seem really dedicated to having a very faithful adaptation that at the same time isn't so slavishly devoted that it doesn't like have a life of its own. Like they change things when they need to make it work on TV, but everything's in there, like everything.
Okay, that's good to hear. I was wondering. I do want to go back though, and we'll go back to this thought as well, but back to the pacing, because I felt personally like I had a lot of whiplash, if that makes sense, kind of watching and going through. And I had to chart it out because I was like, I just feel like, you know, every time I watch something or I watch an episode and get to the end of it, I was like, that's not where I thought they were going to take this as far as structuring the season. And I had to personally map it out. To me, I was like, okay, episodes 1 through 5 felt like a combination of him being in the bubble, the whole thing with the air, and, you know, the guy who plays Lupin from Harry Potter, and then also him retrieving his items.
David Thewlis.
Yeah. And then episode 6 to me felt like a little, the one-off,
Bridge,
like,
yeah.
right. And then episode 7 through 10, I call the Vortex Arc.
Sure, I think that's
And
about right.
I was like,
The doll's house.
I feel like maybe if they had a weekly release, at least for me personally, if it was a weekly release, it would feel a little, I don't know, I guess like to say that they have more time to breathe and that you don't feel like you're going, from one place to the next so quickly. Cause that was a lot for me, I will admit. It's like,
Well,
whoa.
I mean, I've thought for a long time Netflix should be more open to doing things on staggered schedules. Like, I guess it didn't really hurt them. Stranger Things was watched by 11 billion people, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would have been good if they, although it was helped because they had a break, people could talk about it and then go back to the fun episodes.
Right.
I agree. This show would definitely benefit from having weekly things. Maybe like you could group certain ones together, like the final four were all one story. Release those together,
Mhm.
okay? But yeah, like you can release like the first two and then the third one, which is like this little romantic comedy detective story thing with Doctor Who lady,
Yeah.
and then the hell thing is a great little standalone bit. The diner thing got the standalone bit, and then the interlude. I agree. They're not going to
Yeah.
do it because Netflix just doesn't work that
I
way.
know.
Although then they release a standalone one today as we're recording this.
Yes, I was so I finished episode 10 like at like some odd 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I get on Twitter and I see stuff that you're retweeting. I was like, oh, are they gonna okay, well, let's set this up first because most people didn't know that there's gonna be an 11th episode, but you kind of got tipped off to it. So how did that happen?
Okay, this was so odd. And it's odd for net. I mean, has this ever happened where like Netflix holds back an episode, tries to tell anybody, and then just drops another one like 2 weeks later?
I don't recall.
I don't know what happened, but yeah. So Netflix released 10 episodes of the Sandman, and I watched it and I loved it. And I'm frankly, I'm like not done watching it. And I haven't watched the new one, by the way, because I've been working all day, so I haven't got around to it. I watched tonight. Then last Saturday, I am watching the YouTube Netflix show I Like to Watch, where two drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, Trixie Mattel and Katya Zamolotchkova, basically just watch Netflix shows and crack jokes about them. Which I don't watch all the time, but I watch it often enough because it's funny. And I thought they were watching Sandman, and I was like, oh, I like Sandman, so I'm gonna see what they have to say about it. So I'm watching it, and they're being funny, and I'm eating breakfast or whatever. And then they start reacting to footage that fully was not in the first 10 episodes. And I thought I was having a stroke. I was like, what is going on? Like that's simple. It's straight up not in the show. And again, I know the comics are like, that's Calliope. That's the cat one. I love the cat one. And I was just, so I got on Slack. I was talking to Ashley, who runs the Sandman fan page and writes for Wick. I was like going on Twitter to see like, what's going on? Netflix screwed up. Like Netflix just gave the drag queens the episodes early. Like they weren't supposed to, because that video went down like that. But I got the screen. Oh, of course it did. Yeah. But I saw it. I saw everything. I saw everything.
That is hilarious. Yeah, that was
funny.
Yeah, Netflix really dropped the ball with that one. But I mean,
they're trying something new.
Little leak doesn't hurt anybody. And then eventually, I guess it took about a week for them or less to reveal. They were kind of teasing.
I think it was 6 days since the I Like to Watch thing, and then they released the actual episode. It's just funny. It was just weird. Like I just hadn't heard of that kind of thing happening before. But again, like we said, they haven't really done this. Netflix, where they release a thing like a week later. I guess it's new territory, and they're working out the kinks.
Yeah, I don't know if that was meant to be like, surprise, there's more, like a little treat. Sure. Or I also wonder, because the Cats episode was completely animated, I'm like, did they need a little bit more time to work on that? Get your extra 2 weeks and now you can publish the episode. But it's short too. That's all I'll say. It's shorter.
I heard it's the longest one.
Well, the episode combined, but the Cats part is about, I think, 15 minutes. But it's still
and
cute,
you could watch
charming. Yes, you're the Sandman fan. Yeah, you're gonna watch it.
Lovely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight very much. I'm gonna have dinner. I'm gonna have big things. It's gonna be very, very nice. I mean, maybe because it doesn't really fit with the rest of the season. Because it would be weird to like have the big Vortex Doll's House arc end and then put like, and here are some cats at the end of it.
Yeah, it feels a little not tacked on in a bad way, but it just does, it feels like an extra kind of adventure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I watched that whole thing and then I was ready to go to bed. I was ready to go to the
I'm
dreaming. And
sorry.
then I got the call and it felt like a nice little good night story, some
Yeah.
cautionary tales in
Well,
there, but enough to put me to sleep in
I
a
remember
good
that
way.
story. It's kind of nasty. It kind of feels a little British too, right? Because they have like the specials. They have like holiday specials and New Year's specials,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Do they have Easter specials? Whatever. They release like little other episodes in between years, so it's kind of a British thing.
I never thought about that. Well, this would
And
be,
it's going to keep the momentum going, which I'm very happy about because I want to be able to watch this, and it seems like it's doing quite well. And an extra
yeah.
episode, while buzz is still good, cannot hurt.
Yeah. What do we think are the chances of a season two? Are they
Good. I
high?
think
Yeah.
pretty good. I mean, they spent a lot of money on this, like $30 million an episode, I think, which is insane. I
Jeez.
can't believe we're living in this time, Mia, when like people are spending this kind of money on the
Yeah.
regular on the Sandman, an unproven, just bat poop crazy show.
Okay. It's
I'm
okay.
being careful. Um, and they spent that much money to make to bring it to life, and I think it worked. The Lord of the Rings, House of the Dragon, Stranger Things is up to like 40 million or whatever it was an episode, which is insane
Yeah.
because I assume that Winona Ryder's got to have her like palace made of diamonds or whatever. So that's great. What was I talking about? Oh, I had a question for you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I think it'll be renewed because it seems to be doing very well, and I think this new one will only help it. Gotta keep
Oh,
it in the
yeah.
news.
Yeah. Same here.
I think so. What did you think of Tom Sturridge's performance as Dream, the
Oh,
lead
my
character?
goodness. A very stellar performance.
He was good.
It's kind of funny. We have one of our shared colleagues, Natalie.
Mm-hmm.
I also did a podcast with as well way back when. We kind of like the same actors and the same characters. So, for
Okay.
example, like when she watched Stranger Things, she watched it ahead of me, and she just like could not stop talking about Eddie, and I was like, "Oh, what's the deal with this guy?" And then like a week later, I was like, oh, okay, I get the deal because of Natalie. And so then she goes and watches The Sandman and like cannot stop tweeting about Tom Sturridge. I love you, Natalie, for this. And then I'm like, oh, geez, I know what's going to happen. It's inevitable. And yeah, I don't know, was immediately drawn to him. And I think it is this thing where it's this what would you call the renaissance for the emo boy.
Yeah. It's
I don't
definitely like an early 2000s mall goth aesthetic he's rocking,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I'm okay with.
Yeah, I was like, I could not stop talking enough about the Batman on my
Right.
channel because I loved Robert Pattinson's portrayal of this Bruce Wayne. I know it's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me.
I liked it.
And so it felt like Tom Sturridge was kind of coming from that school of like, kind of a little vampire, a little stoic, a little emo, and I think it's quite funny because is there kind of a difference between the way he portrays him in the series versus how he is in the comics?
No, Dream is definitely a melodramatic, gothy, kind of sad boy in the corner character. Like that's the way. Like honestly, Neil Gaiman, Dream had a hand in creating the mall goth aesthetic of the 90s and the early 2000s. This is just
Oh
coming back
wow.
around.
Oh wow. I
Like
love that.
Dream
Yeah.
is Hot Topic the person. Like he is one of those cultural figures who definitely like him, Tim Burton, I don't know, My Chemical Romance, and like a couple of others were like just
Yeah.
that era. And
Yeah.
he's kind of like one of the progenitors, but he's definitely there. I think Neil Gaiman would tell you that he's more like a Byronic hero from the 1800s. But things are cyclical. So Lord Byron is just the sad boy goth of the 1800s.
That is perfect. So okay, I probably could talk about Tom Sturridge a lot. I just want to say I
He
have
was
been
very good.
watching. I have
A
been
lot,
watching a
lot
couple
of
interviews.
magnetism.
Yes, and it's like I don't know who he was with, probably a couple people talking
Mhm.
about just how much chemistry he has with pretty much everyone in the cast, even when they're like, it's kind of weird when it's like with his siblings, like with Death or like Desire, but he just plays it
It's good.
so well. And it's like, I
The
digress.
casting in general, I was very impressed by. I mean, they
Yeah.
had some. Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer was terrific. I loved how kind of soft she was and kind of
Yeah.
quietly threatening. I loved Stephen Fry as Fiddler's Green. I thought that was really just he's
Yeah.
always good for like just the avuncular, you can count on him, friendly energy. I thought Greenhalgh Thief was great as Death. I thought they nailed that. By the way, that episode, I'll just ask, did you cry? I cried.
Did I cry? I think I probably got really emotional, especially at the end where he returned to the
I
new inn. I
know.
was like,
How dare
they're made for each other. You know, I guess Dream was made for everyone. But anyway.
just absolutely everyone. Patton Oswalt was really funny as Matthew the Raven. They
Yeah.
really do a good job with the acting. Just again, it's a factor of the resources they're putting into this, and part of those resources are going toward a good creative team. This show could have been made before, but I'm very, very happy it's being made now. And there's a lot of imaginative explosion brain stuff to get to.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so looking forward to it. I think this is my favorite show of the year so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, is it my favorite? I would say it's probably in the top. I'm very surprised at how much Stranger Things season 4 grew on me. I would say I was like a Stranger Things fan, but this one really nailed it for me. So yeah, I would say Netflix is, you know, I can keep paying them my subscription. At first I was
they're
like
firing people, but you know.
It's all the streaming world is a burning mess. We know that is going on. But okay, so as far as we wrap this up, what do we want to see next, or where are they taking, you know, this whole thing with Lucifer and setting up? Because I have no clue. I didn't read any of the comics, so I'm just kind of like, oh, it looks pretty cool.
Are you asking me to spoil you or just to fake speculate? Because I know exactly where it's going.
You can tell me where it's going. I don't mind in general.
This is good. So this first season adapted basically the first 2 volumes of the comic. There are 10 volumes in all. And the first 2 are the roughest, just in terms of they don't like that whole Vortex arc, especially. It's fun. I like it. But like, it does feel like a 25-year-old kind of wrote it. Like, throw in a serial killer convention, and what if the guy had mouths for eyes, and just, you know, it's a little ramshackle in a charming way. I was kind of like B minus on it overall. Like like that stretch. My favorite by far was the.
So it gets better. You're telling me
it gets more assured and coherent.
Okay.
The next big, like, the comic switches between standalone stories, like that's what the Thousand Cats one and the Calliope one are, and arcs. So the next arc, I won't spoil it, but it's all about hell. It's all about Lucifer. It's all about, they're kind of a rematch, but it's not quite what happens. I think you'll be surprised. If you don't look it up, you'll be surprised at what happens. It's fun. It's cool. It's rarely a series that goes where you expect it to go, which I really appreciate about it. Unless you really get deep in and you're used to like the language it's talking. I'm not sure how they're going to incorporate in all the standalone stuff, because there's some really big ones, like some famous standalones coming up, and they're, again, I have every confidence they're going to have them now, especially if they do the cat one, they're doing everything. Maybe they can do like, I don't know, like an arc episode, then a standalone, and then switch back and forth. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Season 2
sprinkle it in.
Will definitely be the Lucifer and Dream show, if they go by like the plot. What happens next in the plot?
Okay. So they are kind of taking it. That I didn't think about, because I never really knew if they're like jumping around and picking like one volume. So that's interesting now.
Again, it's really, as wild and weird as it is, it's really very faithful. Like, I didn't think, for example, they would include the weird spider women in black veils who fell in love with a sentence, and the one doesn't talk, and they live together. Like, that's just too weird. But there they were. So
they did it.
They're doing everything.
I'm on the fence. I'm wondering if I should maybe catch it, maybe read it. I did see, no, I did. I had a dream that I was at Barnes and
Ooh.
Noble buying the Sandman. So all I know, there's a lot of irony wrapped up in that one. So maybe it was a sign, but
it'll probably be a while, unfortunately, before we get another one. So
yes,
I don't know.
then maybe I should start brushing up.
I'm sure plenty of people will.
Yeah. Well, then I'm also preoccupied with other stuff like Andor is coming out, House of the Dragon is coming
House of the
out.
Dragon. Rings of Power that's coming out.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff, and trying to read is like so hard to fit everything in between.
It's comics, at least. It goes down easy.
That's true.
I think Andor looks surprisingly kind of good, frankly. I was surprised by how interesting the trailers looked, but we'll see.
Yeah, like Rogue One Part 2. Okay, well, that's a whole other conversation. Dan, have any closing thoughts about the Sandman before I let you go?
If you haven't watched it yet, please do. And then tell your friends, tell your mother, your father, your siblings, your children, your congressman. Just have everybody watch it and then have them all tell Netflix to make another season.
Exactly. I love that. And where can people find you and find your work?
Well, I am. You can find my written work at winteriscoming.net. I also host the Take the Black podcast with your usurper, Daniel Roman, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. on the Winter is Coming Facebook and YouTube pages. We're also on TikTok now, the WikTok. And we're going to be covering House of the Dragon every Sunday night after the episodes on my Facebook page and the YouTube page. So lots going on.
There is a lot going on. So thank you all so much. I'm going to leave it here. Sure to give a like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more Sandman Netflix talk, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.